God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 23 of Your Journey Is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. This is my own personal journey, and the expressions and opinions are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey and to Your Journey Is Not Over. Neither are to be used, copied, or edited in any way without my consent. I am going to start today and try to get back on my own personal journey. Doing some reflecting over the past week and going back through my life, I can honestly say that growing up and being conditioned, or adjusted is the word I like to use. So again, being adjusted to my life. And at a really young age, I remember not understanding why I was treated like I was by my mom. She didn't treat my brother the same as she did me, nor did she cringe every time she looked at my brother. Of course, this probably started from birth with my mom and I. I was always seeking approval or any kind of love or acceptance from my mom. Seeking, but rarely ever got. My grandma and my brother and my great aunt, I'm sure, tried to make up for it, and they did. I felt lots of love from them. Of course, being born into this, I knew nothing but this. As I've said many, many times, it was just my life. The circumstances in which I was born into, and again, whom I was born to. As far as feeling abandoned, I was only 2 weeks old when I was taken to my grandparents' house and left in Kentucky. So, of course, being so young, I didn't know any different. Again, living with my grandparents and my older brother was just normal to me. It was when I was forced to go live with my mom and her husband, whom would become my adopted dad, is when the trauma began. And to step out of the box and look at it as an outsider, which, by the way, is really helpful to do on your healing journey. Just so you don't get lost in your own and just your own perspective. See everything from others' perspective too. So looking at this period of time, I do want to add that my own personal journey and being 100% honest, there were a lot of things that were done and said to me throughout my adolescent years and my teenage years that I will never be able to see another perspective or wrap my head around. Those things were just evil, premeditative, and calculating. So, back to when my brother and I were made to go live with our mom. Our mom had never had both of us at the same time. Of course, I was her pawn in her manipulation and need to overpower and control my grandparents. So I had been yanked away from them several times, only to be left with whoever and in whatever conditions, and always rescued by my great aunt. Truly, I hate to even begin to think about what I, as a little baby, was subjected to or had to endure during those times. Our mom was not even equipped to take my brother and I. She didn't know our schedules, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, our sleep schedules, our likes and dislikes. And her being newly married, and most likely, they probably didn't know each other very well. So just stepping out and trying to see it from all sides. She had no clue, and 2 kids were a lot to take on when she had had someone else raising her kids for her. This is when my brother was forced to take on the role of looking out for me, taking care of me, protecting me from anything he could control. I'm quite sure my brother and I suffered some type of separation anxiety. Most definitely we had to. We went from a solid, safe, and structured home to complete chaos and total dysfunction and nothing but trauma. Digging deeper, I can truly say I just didn't understand. And even in these times, I was loved, and I knew I was loved by my big brother. whom I know because of him being 6 years older than me, had experienced way more trauma and had seen more than I did. He sheltered me, he protected me, and knowing my brother the way that I do, I'm sure he felt and carried guilt that he couldn't protect me from everything. God knows he tried. My grandma always said, the devil will creep in through a crack, and that is so true. So, going on advice and wanting to dig deeper, and of course, I want to convey to anyone that has experienced childhood trauma, whether it be physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, please know you are not alone. There are so many of us out here that can relate, even though each person has their own way of coping and compartmentalizing, storing the trauma somewhere deep in our subconscious, just as a way of trying to navigate through life and trying to suppress our memories and our emotions. Because if we face them, it just brings too many emotions to the surface. It reminds us of when we were helpless, vulnerable, and scared and confused, and things were beyond our control as kids. So we go through life trying to create and be in control of our lives. In my case, it was my OCD, my obsessiveness over my house, needing to look like what my friends always refer to as a museum. Neat freak with my house, my kids, my bills, my schedule, my time. Never understanding why I was like that until my healing journey. Everything was chaotic and never knowing from day to day with my mom. No structure, no schedule, no consistency, no safety, and no control. At the mercy of someone that was just completely unstable in every aspect of her life. So I grew up and developed OCD. That started my early teenage years. It was my way of providing myself structure, a schedule, organization, stability, because I lacked that growing up. And it was also my way of being in control of a life that I had been helpless and had absolutely no control in. Fear was instilled into my brother and I early on. We had a fear of our mom. When she would whip us, it was abusive. She took a lot of rage and anger out on us and would whip us most of the time with a belt. She wouldn't stop until she was completely out of breath or wore out. That's why my brother would hide me and try to protect me. And he was always worried about me getting hit in my leg where I had that tumor removed, and it's where I have a scar. Of course, I was tiny and petite built too. So, yes, I remember a lot of fear, not only from our mom, but her husband, and the running in the middle of the night in my nightgown, straight out of bed, and being woken up either by being beat on or by my mom and her husband going to war with each other. A lot of physical abuse. But running to the neighbor's house to try and get help, scared to death. We were just little kids thrown into a world of total chaos and destruction and dysfunction. I had compartmentalized all of this, stored this away so deep, but of course, I had acquired unhealthy coping skills, traits, without even understanding why I was like I was. Trauma ran every part of me, every thought, and every action. That was all that my brain knew to do. And by having these traits, like my OCD, for instance, it was also my way of learning to navigate through life and to try and leave trauma in the past, and truly thinking I was doing a pretty good job at it. Thought I had it under complete control of all of my stored away, locked away trauma. That was until April 6th, 2024. That's when the tidal wave, the tsunami of all of my trauma, all came out all at once. There was trauma and emotions that I didn't even know I had. I was forced to face everything on what I will always call my dark night of the soul. What I now know and understand is there are so many people who don't make it through their dark night of the soul. And that truly breaks my heart. It gives me more determination to be open and honest and to let people know they are not alone with what you have had to suffer through and endure. And we were helpless, confused, scared, misled, and born into a world that was beyond our control. We were robbed of our love, our trust, our innocence, and of course, so much time. I let my trauma not only rob me of my childhood, it continued to rob me my whole life, and it robbed me of the true essence of life. My hope and prayers are that this podcast helps people to begin their own healing journey, without ever having to experience your own dark night of the soul. Like I said in the very first episode, the more we heal, the closer we get to God and the further we get from the devil. If we take away the weapons the devil loves to use on us, our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities, our trauma, our own insecurities, our doubt in ourselves, and our doubt in our true value in this life, it's time we take back our power and we hand all of that power over to God, back to the one that created us and sent each of us here for a purpose. Psalms 34, verse 6 through 8 reminds us that the humble find refuge in the Lord. He hears our cries and answers us. In times of trouble, remember, God loves you and cares about you, and He is our rescuer. Let His goodness and grace surround you, bringing hope and healing into every situation. Here's the things I chose to share today. I do not own the rights to these things that I'm about to share. Everything we avoid or deny about ourselves, whether consciously or subconsciously, will manifest into something bigger until we are forced to face it, usually through something painful and life-altering. Trust that everything is working for you. Pay attention. Your body and situations are always trying to tell you something. Things may not even make sense, so be curious, lean into it, trust it, and listen to the whispers. Also, here's another thing I want to share. When I say I hope you're okay, what I mean is I know you're not okay, but I hope the sadness isn't overwhelming you, that you can see the cracks of the light in the dark, that the shadows are letting you break and hurt and heal without swallowing you up. And no, you are never alone, even in the moments when it feels like you really are. And here's one more. If the devil can't defeat you, he'll try to drain you. He will exhaust your mind, your heart, and spirit. Stop overthinking, dwelling on the past, and stressing about things beyond your control. Trust God and find peace in His timing. Since God never sleeps, there's no need for you to worry. He's always working on your behalf. Let go, trust His plan, and also, please embrace His peace. Also, some food for thought before I sign off today. Heal the root so the tree is stable. This concludes my podcast for today. Please join me next Tuesday. Listen in, and always remember, your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows.